pause. I guess I shouldn't put x there because it could be a value. Cos and sine graphs. So the very first thing we want to do whenever we come up with an equation is we want to get the amplitude first. Amplitude from a graph is absolute value of max minus min divided by 2. So in this case, it's going to be 1 minus a minus 1 divided by 2, which is 2 over 2 or 1. So I know for all of my equations, I can have plus cos, plus 1 cos, negative 1 cos, plus 1 sine, or negative 1 sine. Okay, so how do you know which one to pick? Like I said in the past, they'll either give you one piece of it so that you know you have to find negative sine or negative cos, or they'll only give you one of the answers to multiple choice, one of them. So you have to figure out which one they're looking for, right? So we'll do all four. Now, our b's are all the same no matter which graph as well. So b is 2 pi divided by p, because p is 2 pi divided by b. Remember, these just switch, the b's and the p's. So we have to figure out the period of this graph when it repeats itself. So you can go from max to max, which doesn't look like fun, because a whole bajillion little ticks in between. The easiest one that looks like to me is to go down the min, back up the max, back down to that same spot. So it is 2 pi. So my b value for this graph as well is 1. So it's 1 for all of them, right? You don't find the b or the amplitude any differently no matter which one of these you're finding. You wouldn't have to actually write one, but we're going to. The c value will do last. The d value or the median or midline. I really wish I could put a picture of all of you on this video to nicely take a picture of, like Maddie, who's a garbage can. Okay, and then our d is just the average of our max and min. So it's max plus min divided by 2. Because it's literally just the average horizontal line, right? So it's max plus min divided by 2. So it's going to be 1 plus negative 1 divided by 2, which is 0 over 2, which is 0. Because our d value is literally just the average. So we can put plus 0 behind. So right now, just like the last graph, we actually wouldn't have to have any of those ones or zeros. We'd only need the negative signs. So let's go do the coses first, because coses are easiest to tell your horizontal shifts from, right? If it's a positive cos, we look for the closest maximum value. So the closest maximum value to the y-axis is this one. That's nice. It looks like it's at this tick. What is that tick? How do we figure out how many each tick is? What did I tell you to do? Go to pi, count how many times pi is cut into pieces, right? How many ticks? So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 ticks. So pi is cut into 12 pieces. Cut into 12 pieces means pi divided by 12, right? Each piece is going to be pi divided by 12. So this would be negative pi divided by 12, negative 2 pi divided by 12, negative 3 pi divided by 12, negative 4 pi divided by 12, negative 5 pi divided by 12, negative 6 pi divided by 12, or negative pi over 2. You could also say, hey, it's half of it, right? So we are always shifting from the y-axis, right? Because that's where it would have been. It would have been on the y-axis. It's now pi over 2 to the left when my cos is positive. So I'm going to write x plus pi over 2. Now, negative cos, I look for the closest minimum, because it would normally be at 0 and negative 1, but now it's here, which is actually moved pi over 2 to the right from the y-axis, right? So it's going to be negative pi over 2. These are not always just the opposite of each other, pi over 2, negative pi over 2, because if I shift it unequally away from the y-axis, then they won't be perfectly on both sides. Okay, with sine, I need to draw my median line. That's the very first thing I need to do before I even do any type of translation. My median line, I said, was at y equals 0. I found my d value down here. So I draw my median line at y equals 0. Then I find where it intersects closest to the x-axis. These are equal distance, right? These two here. Now, positive sign, what do I look for? A positive slope, right? When it's going upwards. Negative sign, I look for a negative slope when it's going downwards. So positive sign is either going to be this one or this one. They're equal distance. So I can either say I moved left pi or I moved right pi. Bless you. Would either be more correct? No. It would be if one of them was multiple choice answer and the other one wasn't. So for positive sign, I can either say plus pi or I can say x minus pi. Either one would be just as correct. For negative sign, I take where my intersection and the median line happen, and I'm going downwards. How far off of the y-axis is it? Trick question. How far off of the y-axis is it? None. So I moved nothing. So I could go plus 0 like this if I wanted to. Now, these equations are all right. They'll never be written like that on the diploma, but they're all right. This one would be written as y equals cos x plus pi over 2. This would be negative cos x minus pi over 2. This would either be y equals sine x plus pi or y equals sine x minus pi. And this would be y equals negative sine x. Because if there's nothing attached to the x, there's no translation. Does that make sense? You find your A first, you find your B, you find your D, and then you use your rules to find the C's depending on which one we're looking for. Okay, flip over. You try the next two. Okay, so for this one, we do the exact same steps. It just happens that the graph was actually pulled upwards and squished, possibly. We'll have to see. Okay, how do we know what each of these ticks is worth? We don't have a pi, so how do we do it? Well, we have a 4 pi, so what we could do is count how many ticks are between 4 pi and whatever, and then just do 4 pi divided by ticks. We can do that as well, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So each of these ticks is going to be 4 pi divided by 12, or just pi over 3. So every tick is pi over 3. So this first tick would be pi over 3, then 2 pi over 3, then 3 pi over 3 or pi, 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, 6 pi over 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pi over 3, which is 4 pi, right? Okay, first thing we want to do is get our amplitude if we're coming up with equations. So amplitude is max, absolute value of max minus min divided by 2. What's my maximum? 7. So absolute value of 7 minus my minimum, -1 divided by 2, which is 8 over 2 or 4. So we know we're right if the distance from max to min is actually 8, right? Because the amplitude is half the distance from max to min. So from -1 to 7 is a distance of 8, so we're right. Amplitude is 4, and so it's half the distance. Okay, we need b. b equals 2 pi divided by p. So I need the period of my graph. So we could go from max to max. We could go from min to min. We could go from here, past max, past min, back to here again. I'm just going to erase these off so I can see them. So if I go from here, past to max, past to min, back up to that value, correlates with that. Well, what is that? Pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, 6 pi over 3, which is 2 pi, right? So it just happens that Emma's totally mothering you guys. Like, just give me the shark, because you guys can't stop ADDing with the shark. Okay. 2 pi, 1. So our b value is still 1 in this case. It is not always 1. It just happens to still be 1. Don't just go, well, we've done like 4 examples and b is 1. It must always be 1. That must be true, that, sister. It is. No, it's not. It just happened to be 1. Okay, then let's do d. d is my midline or my median value, and it's max plus min divided by 2. And we need this baby for the equation, but we also need that to be able to get our sine horizontal translations, right? So it's going to be 8 plus -1 divided by 2, which is 7 divided by 2, which is actually 3.5. What? That is not right at all. The max is 7. I was like, no, 3.5 doesn't make sense. Okay, so that's much better. 7 minus 1 divided by 2. Yay! 6 over 2, which is 3. That's so much better. So I'm going to go right away, and I'm going to go to y equals 3 and make myself a line. Now, the line should be drawn accurately as opposed to my line, which is not. Because that's where your shifts are going to be based off of, right? For sine. We know we're right if our amplitude up is the same down. So 3 up gets me to 7. 3 down gets me to -1. Sorry, 3 subtract 4 down gets me to -1. 3 add 4 gets me to 7. My amplitude is 4, right? So I know I'm right with my midline. Then I can get my shift. So my cos is going to be, my A value is 4 this time. So I'm going to either have +4, -4, cos. My B value is 1, so I can either put a 1 here or not. It doesn't matter. It's going to do nothing. If I want to do sines, it's going to be +4 sine. And 1, the B value is 1. Or -4 sine 1. Right? My D value is 3. So I'm going to have, I can have thetas even instead of x's. It doesn't have to be x's, right? Do I need the B value of 1 written in there? No. And then I put a +3 at the back because they all have +3. So the only thing that is different if it's a cosine graph is my shifts, because they are literally the same graph with just different shifts, right? Okay, so let's do positive cos first. We want to find how far the closest maximum has moved horizontally. Well, 2 ticks, right? Each tick is pi over 3. So this would be pi over 3. This would be 2 pi over 3. It moved from the y-axis to the right 2 pi over 3. So I'm going to put minus 2 pi over 3. Negative cos, we look at our closest negative, which looks like it's at a terrible spot. It's in between. That's ugly. So it would be yeah, 5 pi over 6. Yo. It's between pi over 3 and 2 pi over 3, right? So you literally just find what's in the middle of pi over 3 and 2 pi over 3. So the way you could do that, let's see what it is. Be pi over 3 plus 2 pi over 3 divided by 2, because you're finding the average, correct? So that would be 3, bless you, 3 pi over 3 divided by 2. Oh, look at how nice that's going to turn out. Pi over 2 is what it should be. Not 5 pi over 6. Pi over 2. Because you're just finding the average, right? So for this one, it's shifting between, oh, same thing, right? It's between negative pi over 3 and negative 2 pi over 3. Found the average of those, it'd be negative 3 pi over 3 divided by 2, which is negative pi over 2. So I would add pi over 2. Does this make sense how we found the one in between? You just literally found the average of the 2 points, right? Add the 2 points up, divide by 2. Let's see if sine is as ugly. Ooh, sine positive isn't. Why is sine positive so nice? The intersection going upwards is on the y-axis. Sine positive doesn't move anywhere. Yay. Sine negative, not as nice. Sine negative, the closest one, looks like 3 ticks. So it's 3 ticks this way, or 3 ticks this way, right? 3 ticks is, each tick is pi over 3, so pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3 is pi. So they're either moving pi to the right or pi to the left. Make sense? I want you to flip way ahead to example 2. Quite a few pages ahead to example 2. All right. This one says, describe the transformation. So we're back to transformations again. In logs and exponents, we'll be back to transformations again. In radicals and rationals, we'll be back to transformations again. So transformations follows us all the way through, so we have to be good at it. What's the trick on the first one? Yeah. Take that 2 out. Y equals 2 cos 2 x. When you take negative pi, you take a 2 out, it's like dividing by 2, so it's negative pi over 2 plus 1. So we still do stretch, reflect, translate. Stretches. We have a vertical stretch by a factor of 2 or a half. 2, because it's not with the y. About the x-axis. We have a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2 or a half. Horizontal stretch is always flip, right? Because it's always with the variable. So horizontal stretch by a factor of a half about the y-axis. Do we have any reflections? Is my A or B negative? No. If my A or B values aren't negative, then no reflections. So I can just stay here. Do we have a vertical translation? Yep. 1 up. And a horizontal translation, pi over 2 right. Like I said, if you forget to take that 2 out, you'll get everything correct except your vertical translation. You'll say it's pi to the right instead of pi over 2 to the right. B. B gets a little trickier. We're going to ignore C because it's a sine graph and we're comparing it to a cos. That's silly. So B, I'm going to get y equals 3 cos. I take the 2 out and I'm left with x minus what? When I divide by 2, it's like multiplying by a half, right? So right now I have negative 2 pi over 3. I'm going to divide that by 2, or I'm going to multiply it by a half, which means I'm actually going to get negative 2 pi over 6, which is negative pi over 3. Plus 2. Stretch. I have a vertical stretch by a factor of 3 about the x-axis. Horizontal stretch by a factor of a half about the y-axis. No reflections because I have no negatives for my A or my B value. Translations. I have a vertical translation 2 up and a horizontal translation pi over 3 right. I want you to flip ahead 2 pages. So not the next page, but the page after. So we've went over when I give you a graph, how you have to come up with the equation. We've went over when you're given the equation, list the transformations. Now what they're going to do is they're going to give us information and we have to come up with the equations. So write the equation of each sine function. So here they're limiting us to sine. It has to be sine. Okay? Given its characteristics. Amplitude of 2. What does my amplitude help me with? Yeah. Vertical stretch. Yep. Your A value. So that's going to give us our A value. But remember, our A value could be technically plus or minus 2. Correct? Because our amplitude is always the absolute value of our A value. Right? So our A value could be plus or minus. The period of pi. What do people do and screw up right away? They put pi in for B and move on. Pi in for B. Because pi is actually the period, we have to put it in for P, because it's the period, and solve for B. So B equals 2 pi divided by the period. So if they want B, they'll give you the period. If they want the period, they'll give you B. That's how they work, so that you have to use the formula interchangeably. So B is actually just 2. A phase shift pi over 3 to the left and a vertical displacement 1 down. Now, For our A value, they're going to have to tell you A is greater than 1 or A is less than 1, or how do you know, right? So for right now, if we don't say anything like that, we're going to have y equals plus or minus 2. Sine B is 2, bracket, x to the left, so plus pi over 3, plus 1. Plus 1, try again, minus 1. So they're going to have to specify like A is greater than 0 or A is less than 0. Or if it's a multiple choice, they won't give you both, right? Like that. Your assignment is on the bottom of the page here. I have to do that. See here, if you look, this is what they did. If you look at B here, they have y equals A sine B theta plus D. A is less than 0. So they're telling you that A would have to be negative, right? And then you'd have to tell me what shift it would be if A was negative. Here they tell you, well, now it's cos, but A is positive. So which would it be? You'd look for the maximum, right? Everything like that.